Welcome to Sparking Success with Aaron Opalewski. Aaron brings you conversations that spark innovation, cultivate leadership skills, and pave the way for your business success. In each episode, we delve into the dynamic world of business and leadership, exploring strategies, insights, and success stories that fuel your professional journey. Well, hey, everybody. Welcome to Sparking Success. My name is EJ, and I'm one of your hosts. I'm joined by my good friend, Aaron. Aaron, how you doing today, man?
Great, man. It's good to be back doing the podcast with both of us.
It is. You know, it's been it hasn't been a slow season for sure, but thankfully we had a good chunk of special guests on throughout this season, and as we have, we've learned from some great people. We'll tap into that a little bit later here. But today we want to not only talk about that last, let's call it 4 or 5 weeks. It definitely hasn't been in just pause mode. We've been able to get out episodes every week, and as we've done that, we've had some incredible people on. From your standpoint, share a little bit about those guests. You know, we had multiple on.
Yeah, I mean, I think our overall goal with the podcast was to be able to do this, what we're doing here, but also bring people on that weren't, so much in like the speaking or book circuit. And a couple of our guests have done some of that.
Yeah.
And, I'm not knocking that, but to also bring people on that maybe you don't hear on other shows that are just in the business world.
Yeah.
And that we can all learn from, including us, right? So I feel like, we've made some good friendships, from it, and already, work or collaborate with some of those people that were on. But that's, continued. So that's always cool. It's not expected, but I think it's just like a natural thing that people like working with people they feel aligned with, so I think that'll always be true, in the world.
In the
I hope so, at least.
Yeah, definitely. And the gamut has definitely been there. We had Josh, who has, successful business, a lot of coaching, things like that, some super inspirational, just moments within that episode. We've had Chad and CJ, both, awesome business owners, some really neat products that they produce and help prototype. It's kind of across the gamut. And I know as, we started the podcast and I heard your vision for it, that was a huge aspect. You just wanted to really show people beyond that aspect of theory, people putting things into practice and sparking that success. And that's been really cool to see. One of the moments that happened in between each of those episodes was a webinar that you got to keynote. You started off well over 1,000 recruiters, folks within the recruiting industry, talking about finishing the year strong.
Yeah.
And I know as we were prepping this episode, you set a number. I think at the time maybe it was in the mid 70s of days. Left until the end of the year.
What are we at, like 73? Something like that?
I'm going to take a deep breath.
By the time this comes out, probably under 70.
Yeah.
So
man.
It's coming quick.
And it is. And part of that is, the planning alongside of that. And you shared a few things with those recruiters. And obviously, that was something that people subscribed to and whatnot. Could you give us a couple of those takeaways just as people are looking towards the end of the year and, just kind of recount a couple of those for everybody who's watching?
Yeah, well, first off, thank you to you and to Bolt for all your guys' help with setting up for that webinar because, without your guys' help and teamwork and partnership on it, wouldn't have gone as well as it did. And Ben, Mina did an awesome job as the host and putting that together, and he's got an amazing community, but for me, I don't know if you saw this, but he just posted today that he's speaking and he was doing some prep work for it. And I'm like, dude, you're going to do great. And it shows right there. Cause how you do it really comes down to the unseen hours, and how you prepare. And with you guys helping out with that, I was able to focus on that, preparing for what I was going to say, what I was going to talk about, how I was going to, pour into the group and not have to worry about any of the technical stuff, the behind the scenes to make it all look, amazing and sound. Even like I think when we were on, we had because we wanted a multi-camera
Yeah,
setup,
yeah.
and it it was looking like we had a hurdle on that right before we
Right,
went
right,
on.
right.
And kudos to you. You got it figured out. Like we
Yeah.
got it dialed in. And thank God we did, because I spent most of my time at the whiteboard.
Yep.
And we were using a couple of those cameras. So, I mean, you guys just did amazing on that. So thank you.
Yeah, we have a great team, and I'm super thankful just to be a part of those moments, because those moments are what continues to help create momentum for our organizations. And you, like, in the same side, did just a phenomenal job. There was a reason I know Ben chose you to kick it off, so that's great. One of the things that you really talked about was making sure that the fundamentals of what you're doing as you progress towards the end of the year don't fade out. And you said it so much more eloquently and, powerfully than I just said. Tell everybody who's listening today, why is there prepping for the end of the year? That's so important.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's always good to find some time to reflect. Now, find some time, not all your time. You don't want to stay in reflection or evaluation mode, and I think you can definitely do that too long. So, caution, on that in context. But that doesn't mean that you should always, go and never, take a step back and look at things from above. Even if it's just you in a business, you don't have the infrastructure to do that, maybe as like part of like your designed role. I have more ability to do that overall, because that's more of my role as we've continued to evolve and grow and build a portfolio of companies, and we have more people and experts that own their areas, right? But even for the person that has, it's them, right? Well, yeah, you got to go, and you're going to be involved in the day to day, and I am still as well. But you still got to find at least some time, even if it's an hour, to reflect. And generally, because we're so big on the framework of start this in Q4. So we start the planning in October. Now, if it was one person, do you need to do 3 offsites like we do? No, probably not. But we have, a growing team with multiple leaders, and those leaders collaborate and work together. Like what have you heard more from me than anything probably over all years?
Work together, teamwork,
collaboration, communication.
Yeah.
We're a people business, and guess what? The more people there are, the more complex it's going to get. So you got to keep everyone, you hear the analogy, row the boat. You got to be doing it the same direction, or you can't be. You got to work together and collaborate and use that as a I use the word leverage, like not in a good way. Like you got to
use that to your advantage.
Use that to your advantage.
Yeah.
Compared to like the which can happen, like when you're executing it right, like that's what can happen. Well, also what's true, the more people you have, the more complex it gets. And if you don't do this stuff well, stuff starts to go awry, or it can. So, we all have a lot going on. We all get, busy throughout the year. Like for us, we have objectives, for this year that we're going after. We call them igniters internally, and we've talked about that in a few episodes. Well, we do weekly updates, we do monthly updates, we do, a bi-weekly leader. Like we have it's not like we haven't talked all year, but when we do these offsites, which we'll do our first one tomorrow, so before this episode drops, it's, we're stepping out of the day-to-day and we're looking at things from above. Hey, where are we at on this objective? Are we going to cross the overall? Are we going to cross in this, company or business unit? Okay, if we are going to cross, where are we raising the bar to?
Mm-hmm.
If it's close, or it's doable, but we need a push. Okay, what can we do to support each other, collaborate? Like what do we need to continue doing, or can we press on the gas on some things that are working to carry us over? Because there's 70 plus days left. If we're off pace, one, like, well, I'm never going to say it's over, until it's over on something, and it's not over, but it might take longer than we we're projecting it to take when we look at like a yearly or annual objective. Okay, well, if it's looking like outside of some Hail Mary that comes through on something that we're not going to get to one of these, objectives of the overall one, let's look at where we're at. Let's look at what we need to improve upon, add, invest in, what needs to happen, what solutions need to come in place, what are we using everyone's unique capabilities the right way?
Right.
And again, the more people you have, the more complex that can be. So we have a system where we kind of go over that top level and talk about those numbers and how we're going to get to the next number. If we're raising the bar, if we think we're going to miss or it's going to be close, like, okay, what are we going to do? And then we do some reverse engineering on that, or we'll talk about that. Well, everyone's homework before we go back to the second one is going to be to work on some of the reverse engineering if they can't lay that out crystal clear in about 5 minutes,
Right.
10 minutes max.
Yeah.
Because it should be simple.
Yeah.
Not simple to execute, simple to like, here's what we got to do.
Yeah. There should be checkpoints along the way of that so that, you know where you're at. And I think, that was one of the key takeaways that you mentioned to people from that webinar was you got to know your numbers. You have to know what your numbers are right now, what you're projected to do, and then you can, base things off of that.
So our first one is like, I know there's a couple of like, we have a parking lot things, like as stuff comes up, it's like, oh, that's a great idea.
Yeah.
Or, hey, that's an issue. Well, to stay on track for our schedule for the first one, we have a little parking lot, and maybe we'll cover those things in that meeting. Maybe it will dump into the second or third offsite, but we're going to go through the numbers and knowing our numbers. And then it's a good, we've said this on a podcast, and it's just like we do what we're talking about.
Right.
Like we look at the core values, the culture is like, look at it like a set of train tracks. And so like we sent out, I think it was a survey or little questionnaire, and it's basically asking, hey, what's everyone's opinion on how we're doing on this? This is important to us, but no one's perfect.
Yep.
And we can all, we can veer off or we can be nailing it,
Mm-hmm.
and it's our job to pull each other back on. Or if we feel like if EJ, if you felt the company was off course on something, I might disagree.
Right.
Okay. We can kind of bottle that in, right?
Yep.
Or you could provide your reason or opinion for why you're feeling that way. And a couple things can happen. One, everyone, starting with like, got to be comfortable to take that in, even though you might not agree or look like these are my babies, so like could be frustrating, right? But I just got to take it in.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, hey, let's say I don't agree with that. Well, what a great opportunity. Because you and I can talk and I can listen to you.
Yep.
And I can find that there's probably some truths in something you're saying, or I can at least understand where you're coming from. And then I get the chance after I listen to you well and look at it from your lens, important. It's like, what about what he's saying might be true, even if I don't agree. Acknowledge some of that.
Right.
And then after I let you talk, and again, I'm not saying this will happen, but if there was a disagreement, it's like, oh, that's not, like, you're above all the data. Like, we're not going to do this every day.
Right.
But we get an opportunity here where if we're having that, well, if that festers, continues, doesn't get talked about as within any relationship, where there's a conflict or a difference of opinion, specifically as it relates to like core principles within what people are believing, or it's like, hey, like we made this, like you look at like a marriage, like we made this commitment to each other. And I feel like you're veering off course in this way.
Right.
And not that we're married, but like if that's the case and everyone just sweeps it under the rug, that's going to compound and compound. It's the same thing in business. And it's like, hey, well, the more people we have and the less they communicate daily together, not saying there's going to be differences of opinion. It's not saying we're going to feel like we're off track for this stuff. We got to create a platform where if someone feels that way, let's get it out there in the open. Let's listen to them. And in a very worst case scenario, we don't agree, but I hear you out And then inversely, you're going to hear where I'm coming from on why, I acknowledge, what you're saying. I understand where you're coming from. Here's why I think and I got to understand, like, that's your viewpoint, right now. But I want you to understand that, like, this is not the intention. Like, when we're like, not saying this will happen in our offsite, but because we talk about numbers,
Right.
we're going through numbers a lot. Man, I think we're too locked into the numbers. We need to be, more focused on, communicating things within the value set. And my, initial response is like, well, we do that by design on every weekly update where we acknowledge and recognize people based off the core values. And a lot of times we're telling stories, even if they're numbers related, as it pertains to the core values and
Right.
how they created that scenario that created a great number or something like that. But, like, just man, we spent some time talking about that. So, like, that's how I look at it. Someone else could look at it different. I don't anticipate that'll come up, but it could.
Yeah.
And if it did, I would listen to them. And I think the truth within that would be like, man, we have been pretty focused on some of these things to build the business acumen for what we're doing, why it's important, the ever dynamic changes we're dealing with technology and stuff like this, and how we have to be on this in regards to productivity. But within that, here's how it ties to being people-driven, service-focused, to finding a way to deliver value for the client. Here's why it's the right thing. Like, you're hearing me kind of go into it. Like,
Yeah.
the reason we have to be so focused on the productivity of the team is because we are people-centric.
Yep.
We are betting on people, but that doesn't mean we can't acknowledge or disregard AI and technology and what's coming. And, we're literally getting into some, like, you don't know this yet. I'm reading 3 books before the end of the year on AI, technology. I'm 62 pages into the first one.
Wow.
Guy's way smarter than I am.
Yeah.
But it's we're going to be aware. Now, we're still betting on people.
Yep.
We're not going to go and buy, the Tesla robots, and replace the whole team with Tesla robots. But that doesn't mean we're disregarding what's happening within that realm. We have, Mary, who works with us.
Yeah.
One of her big projects right now is to go through Ben's other summit.
That's
Where
right.
we brought on all the recruiting AI technology, and we are taking summary documentation from the recording of that summit, and she's going to make recommendations in detail. One, she's giving me summaries on every presentation.
Yep.
But then going to make recommendations on which one she thinks we should beta test in between now and the end of the year. And why are we doing that for the next 60, 70 days?
Yeah.
Because we want to be
ready.
We're not, the year's almost over.
Right.
It's the election, and, we got Halloween and the election and Thanksgiving and Christmas. And, like, I'm not yeah, we do have all that stuff, but those are 1 days. Those aren't weeks or 2 weeks or months to take off. Like, we got to go. We can enjoy that time with our family. I don't know how you enjoyed the election with your family specifically, but the other stuff you get, like, but it's not an excuse to punt the next 73 days.
Yeah.
And, that's just a few things that we're doing with that. So, sorry, we just role played it, but
we've been busy.
We've been busy.
Yeah.
And I'm just saying, so we go through we're heavy on the numbers in this first one, and we're heavy on the core values and culture, and just giving a platform to everybody. If everyone feels like we're on the right track, cool. Like, we'll use the time to kind of just brush over, the mission, the vision, why a high performance culture is so important to our values. And we'll just kind of like hum through it, because it's never bad to get, a quick 5-minute overview of that again.
Yeah. I want to, in a great way, I hope, interrupt you, because you just said something that I've seen you, Aaron, over, especially the last year, but years, throughout, that you've done a really good job of. And I think it's key for people to hear as you're talking about this potential offsite, preparing for the end of the year. Mm-hmm. And you handle it really, I was going to say gracefully, but that sounds super feminine. So, I'll stay away from gracefully, but nimbly and humbly. You just said that you give everyone a platform.
Mm-hmm.
Now, there's levels of that, right? And as the president CEO of Spark Companies, there's also times that you step in. What have you really found that works in that team meeting, series or those offsites as you're prepping that you found works giving people the platform in that time?
That's a good question, and it's a little nuance into what it's working. It's realizing what, because when we started to do that, and if you just bring it up, like I'm used to, I don't know if it's from kind of growing this thing organically / in the role of recruiting, and you're asking questions and you're talking to people and things can go in different, like I'm used to just like taking questions on the fly and
Right.
going. I think when we started to do this with good intentions, some of the early feedback on like adding that to the meetings was, well, we hadn't really thought about it. And it's like, man, that's always on my mind.
Got it.
One, but again, okay, that's me thinking from my lens, not everyone else's lens.
Yep.
Then it's like little frustration on my part, like, oh, like everyone's, no one said anything, but then hey, I remember we did this last year, and then 2 months later, this came up, or I don't know. I'm just giving you an example.
I got you.
So I mentioned a couple things that probably just flew right under the radar on this, but like, so what we do now is like we sent these questions out yesterday,
right?
Like you got that email yesterday. So that's the intentionality, and that some of the feedback we got on this is like, hey, like it be, because everyone's focused on, like, they're coming to this meeting,
right, ready
as we've done more of these. I think the people that have done more of them have gotten better and better at it. From doing it, which there's some lessons, like, you do stuff, you get better at it in a lot of instances. So, but one of the things we took away is like, hey, like people aren't, they should be prepared, and the more they've done this, the more prepared they'll be. But like, create the environment and set the framework for them to like get in that kind of mode. So we sent that out not weeks in advance,
right?
But what was there, 3 or 4 questions on there and it's really to get you thinking. And we weren't dropping on that on you in a meeting where you're already hearing some other stuff, and you have like 90 seconds to think about what you want to say, and then get up in front of the group.
You want it to be somewhat calibrated.
Like you don't need 8 weeks to figure that out, but we're giving you 48 hours to think through your thoughts, knowing that everyone's, you're probably prepping for what you're going to talk about on your piece to that. Right. And if, someone's in your situation, like we talked about it a little bit, but like, it'll be your first time doing that.
Right.
And so, to me, it's like, oh, no big deal. Like, well, I've done this now 11 times in some capacity. Well, it's your first,
right?
And we've done some other stuff, and
and I've done it in different scenarios, but here it's my first round.
But so there, you go, like as someone's preparing for it, they're probably going to be thinking more about that than when you drop something like that on them. So what have we done? We've taken some of that, like we listen. It's like, hey, like okay, like great, like I don't mind doing that, and kind of prefer to just go. But I do spend a lot of time like thinking about this stuff too, and then it's like, well, let's take that feedback and let's do it in a way that allows people to do what's maybe better for them, to give better answers and be more a part of the conversation and think it through. And I think that goes for things that they think maybe we need to change, but also like just as much, it's like, man, we really are doing good with this. We need to do more of this. We don't do enough of this. Like we're kind of missing the opportunity to push down on this in a way that gets the most out of the team, or gets the most out of the scenario, to kind of like open the team's eyes to like really like committing to this or going at this, whatever it may be.
Yeah. Aaron, when you're working with different leaders and they're either preparing for, a new season, they're looking at their next igniter or goal, and they're having challenges. How do you, as the leader in that seat, help them navigate through to the solution?
So let me ask you a question
Yeah.
back. Like when they have achieved their current one and they're working on setting their next one, or if they're gonna miss big on like the one in front of them, because kind of two different approaches.
Yeah, I was more referencing when they're planning for what's next
Like when they're
in
gonna
their
achieve
business.
their
Yeah, it's like,
objective. Yeah.
hey, we're on track, things are going good,
Yep.
but we need a solution for this.
Mhm.
We need to get better at this. How do you help people process through to those solutions?
Well, I had my answer in my head, and then you said it a little bit differently. So I'm
Okay.
gonna try and answer.
Go
your
back to the
question.
last one then.
Well, if someone's crossed their, objective and
Yeah.
they're working on setting their next one, this is for me too, I think it was one of the tougher things for me and therefore as us as an organization, because you're excited, you're feeling good, you're in our first couple, like we hadn't done it before, and it's like when you're like the winning and moving past what you set down to do, um, there's not many feelings like that.
Yeah.
It's intoxicating.
Yep.
I think is a good way to say it, and it builds confidence, which is good. But when you haven't done it overall, I actually tend to see people get overly confident and shoot high without kind of reverse engineering the math.
Got it.
So, my answer to that is that's an exciting time, and I know it's an exciting time, and that's where the guidance come in. It's kind of like, okay, let's use math.
Yep.
Let's use math as a framework, and we did this yesterday.
Yeah.
Because you guys are in a spot where you're going to cross your first
Right.
objective, and congratulations.
Thank you.
It's awesome. And what did we talk through? We talked through some ranges.
Yep.
And we used math based on our GP per person.
Yep.
To come up with our next objective,
Right.
Igniter, which, again, if you go back to like 2 or 3, like we talk about some of this stuff, and
Yeah.
here we are. Like,
Yep.
this is what we did.
It's now
So
the season.
it's
Yeah.
that. Now, if someone is doing a good job, like the way you said it the other way, if someone's doing a good job and, maybe they're going to cross that, but they have a couple different things that they're working on, and like 2 of them are going great, so say a few of them.
Yeah.
So 2 of them are going great and one's lagging. Nuanced thing. Depends on the situation. Might talk through solutions to do that, get that third one up to speed. We might look at it and say, should we be doing the third one?
Mm-hmm.
Should we be doing it now? Or is that like something that is a good idea, but it's more future state when we have different talent and strengths on the team? You just kind of look at that and have some back and forth on that area that maybe needs solutions. The solution may be, this is a great, like, top level idea. We're early on executing it.
Yeah.
And that could be based on skill sets within the organization, or tools and technology, or space,
Mhm.
all kinds of, like, there could be all kinds of things, different dynamics in the world. Although I lean towards that last, because I like to hey, like, for the most part, we can't control everything, but there's
Right.
a lot we can, and let's focus on that.
Yeah. Okay. I feel like we've covered a number of really good things, especially as we, head into this next season, as we look at, crossing into new year.
Mhm.
And for some people, they're probably even freaked out about, me saying that alone, like, oh, we're looking at crossing into new year, but we are. What would be the 1 or 2 key points that you would tell people as they're, the 70 odd days out from the new year to dial in on?
Yeah, I mean, I would make sure you take, again, if it's just you or you have a team and you have to figure out how much time you need, but take at least an hour to, if you have a team, like a half day. We like getting off site, even though our first site's actually on site.
Yeah.
At one of the areas that we have in here. We have the luxury of kind of clearing that out.
Yeah, we have
but,
some space.
We had some logistical challenges with the offsite on the first one. That's okay. We pivot.
Yep.
But do that. Like we like to do it off site because it just gets people in a different environment, state of mind. It helps them kind of disconnect from the day-to-day. So, I would do that in some capacity.
Yep.
You don't have to do it 3 times, 3 full days. That's a big investment, but it depends on what the team structure's like, and some of our teams in different states and it's coming in for that. Like it just depends on your situation, but do that. Take some time to get above and look at things. Within that, I would make sure you're looking at core, number stuff and understanding what's going on in your business, where you're at based on your objectives and where you want to go or what you need to do to reach the objectives that you set. And then I'd be using that time to focus on, if you're in line with your values. Now, let's say you haven't set objectives or you don't have values. Well, then or you don't do, that at all. Well, my recommendation would be do it. Pick core values, and then start to get a basis for understanding some key numbers for you.
Yep.
So, we don't know any of that, or we don't have values, or we don't do this. Well, okay, use some time. On a first time of like stepping above would be to start. That.
Yeah.
And then you just build it from there. So that's a recommendation. Second recommendation is that while you do that, you don't take all 73 days left in the year or whatever it is when you listen to this to do that. You're taking points in time, and your other time in between, you need to, one of, my friends, Ben Newman says, be where your feet are. So if you're going to take some time off, if you're going to, have some holidays that you celebrate, Christmas, Thanksgiving, like whatever it is, like, look, enjoy that, be present. You're never going to get that time back with your family or your loved ones. Like be there.
Yeah.
But guess what? Okay, if you're going to have those days and you do take a day or 2 or 3 like us to plan, well, then you have even less days than what we just mentioned. You're taking a week off in between. A good time for us to actually take time off is the holidays. So that all the social guys that, don't take any, I don't, a lot of them sell products that you have to know when your business makes money. They sell products Black Friday, Christmas, these are good times for you to make money.
Mm-hmm.
There's always a way to make money, but in our workforce solutions business, where a lot of the workforce is off, it's good to mirror, if you're going to have some time to disconnect, it's one of the better times to do that. I do like to do some of my prepping, my planning, my organization. Maybe I'm, reviewing some I'm still going to do some stuff, but I'm not going to have no time or not be present for my Christmas. I'm going to cherish those moments with my kids, with my wife. So do that. But okay, we're recording this on Thursday?
Yep.
The 17th.
Yep.
Okay. Well, on Thursday, the 17th, I'm working.
Yeah.
On Friday, the 18th, I'm working. I'm going to be doing some work on Saturday.
Yep.
I'm also going to be doing the trunk or treat, with the kids and so guess what? Whatever I'm doing, I'm gonna be focused on that.
Right.
And that is the general advice is look, you're going to get pulled, or there's all these different distractions. The people that get smoked in this time don't do any of the things that we're talking about, or they only do that and they don't actually do any work.
Right.
And then I think where we really miss, is if we're not present and focused and executing in our day-to-day, then we're more likely to have a harder time. And I'm not you could also have a hard time if you are locked in, because you can be in that mode and be locked in and not be present with your family and all that stuff. You're never going to get that time back.
Right.
And every single person, that I talk to that's a mentor or a coach, an executive. I was just out at a lunch yesterday with a friend. I'm not going to, drop their name, but they've done very well for themselves.
Yep.
And they have, I have a luxury of talking to people that have some older children. Right. And are in a farther along life stage than me as it relates to their family.
Mm-hmm.
And there's something when everyone tells you the same thing.
Yeah, when they say it over and over and over.
Cherish this time.
Yep.
Cherish this time. You're not going to get it back. We're trading, pictures, and he sent me a picture of his daughters. He's got 3 and they're all growing up, and sent them back of like our little one. She's sleeping, and the other one was like riding a horse for the first time yesterday. And he's like, look, man, like you got to cherish that time.
Yeah.
And I must have heard that, I don't know, 100 times from people I respect.
Yep.
And somewhere along the line, it stuck with me. And I'm not always perfect, but I'm pretty grateful that like I feel like I've worked into how I work, which is a lot, but the time to be present when I'm with them.
Yeah.
And then just like with the core values, guess what I have to assess sometimes, whether it's myself or if my wife, tell me like, hey, like you're, you usually got that phone flip.
Yeah.
You're on it a little much
Right. What's
now.
going on?
It's like, and it's not like I'm going to disregard what's going on with that.
Right.
But can it wait 30 minutes?
Yeah.
And sometimes it can't, you know, depending on where someone's at in their business. If they just start, like, sometimes it can't.
Yeah.
But, we have a team, and, I've built up a scenario where not all the time, but probably 9 out of 10 times, something can wait.
Right.
At the same time, last night, you were asking me, like, prepping and stuff like that. And the girls, this is just being real, the girls got home. Stella was screaming. It was late dinner, all this stuff. I was like rushing. I was helping them grow something, and then I had to hop on a Teams because my whole day was booked out. And it was a PDF version of what I had. And so thankful to the person that was helping me out. They hopped on with me with 7 o'clock at night.
Yep.
And usually my phone would be flipped. I'd be hanging out with the girls. I'd be getting ready. But last night I did not.
Yeah.
I was doing that.
Yep.
So I'm still doing that. But like, that's not an every night event.
Right.
Like, I'm going to get my stuff done.
Yep.
I'm going to show up tomorrow and be prepared for the team, right? That was part of that. Like, and I wasn't going to make the person that was gracious enough to get on with me at 7. And we said it was going to be 10 minutes, and we spent an hour together.
Right.
Really grateful for that, but I wasn't going to make them do it at 4:30 in the morning.
Yeah.
So, so like, look, like that happens, but as you can build that out, or if you are taking time off, like, man, take your time off, like set your PTO up to actually do it. Like, you need someone else to handle stuff. If it's a day where most people are off in our business, generally you're good. If you're doing a day where you're, if you don't have a teammate helping you out, right? Like, and you're like, I'm going to be responsive. Well, then you kind of got to be responsive.
Yeah.
But I'd recommend setting up the right way, work really hard. And when you are, off, design it in a way where you can like be present in that time, because you're never going to get it back.
Yeah.
And I'm talking to myself too.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm with you. I mean, it's bouncing around in my head as well.
Yeah.
Aaron, you shared a lot of great things today. And I think that's what helps us, as an organization, and many people who listen be able to, prep like that as well.
What do you think about that? Like, because it's one of the things that we talked about, like, because I mean, you were a pastor, you work every weekend,
Yeah.
And then that's just kind of comes with the territory of that, but you weren't able to be at some things for your kids, and they're doing, like, they're both amazing mountain bikers, by the way. But like, that's something we talked about.
Yeah.
And so in some ways, I think you probably get more flexibility.
Yeah.
But then this, like what you're doing, also, not that your job before didn't, but like you're running this organization.
Yeah.
It takes up a lot of headspace at all times. So like,
yeah, I appreciate you asking. I think there's a couple of different things that I've, noticed within it. One, it is a different emotion. Okay. So, when I was, in the nonprofit, the church space, within that, it's a different feel than what this, type of business is, running a creative agency. I also think that, so I don't think the pressure is necessarily wildly different, right? Yeah. And what I'll say with that is I think people will always assume or take on the threshold of pressure that they're able to take on, right? So whether you're flipping burgers and that's your threshold, if you go over to making tacos, you have that same threshold typically. And I think that's why some people are just flat out successful and some people are not. They just have a different threshold for, what that looks like. So for me, the emotion is different, and the schedule's different. Now, I can get a lot of things done at 4:30 a.m.
Yeah.
So, every day, and you and I have, multiple times started texting each other at 5:15. You're like, oh yeah, you're up. And I'm like, oh, hey, he's up. Like it's a different schedule. I'm able to right now spend a bit more time at night than I used to be. Because it's a different type of people business. But last night, one of our clients, 10:02, texted and was asking about a piece of content they had. They were, hoping to have a tweak made on something.
And they wanted it probably for the next morning.
And their hope was to have it to, post this morning.
Yeah.
Although, when I was talking to them, they also said like, well, we could post that on Friday.
Sure.
Well, one of the things here at Spark Companies, that all of us really embody is that white glove service.
Yeah.
So I'm going to, even if it could be done, today, Thursday, I wanted to make sure that they knew as a client that we valued them so much that we would get that right back to them. Okay. And I was able to, shimmy some things around and make it happen. And hopefully this morning when they woke up, they were able to have it, ready to go if they wanted to get that post out. So it is a bit different, but I will tell you that, in the past, making the sacrifice for others predominantly versus my family was very, very apparent. And this is a season. And early on in our business, I said, Aaron, one of the things that I'm going to do is I'm going to work really hard, but I'm not going to sacrifice my family like I used to. And that has paid many dividends already. Are we still learning? Yeah. But
there's times where you do.
Exactly. It's
stuff.
like, I'm sorry, guys. Like I can't be there.
Sure.
I was driving in yesterday, just as you mentioned that. I used to drive my kids to school Monday, Wednesday, Friday.
I know. I'd see you guys
right?
at Starbucks.
Yeah.
in the mornings.
Yeah, exactly. And I would pick them up every Monday and every Friday from school. It's been 18 months since I've driven the kids to school. Yeah. And I don't do that anymore. Are my kids falling apart because of that? No. Would they love to have dad drive them? Yeah. Could I, with the flexibility that you've, allowed me, do that? Yes. But there's other things that I'd rather prioritize the time with than that, 10 minutes to school. And my sweet wife's able to drive them, thankfully. And so things change. Yeah. But I couldn't agree with you enough that this season, maybe it's because our kids are, in that, call it 3 to 10-year-old range right now where it's just so, foundational. Yeah. But that's what we're preparing for. And that's what, we want to build for our kids to also have success. So tons of wisdom today, Aaron. Thanks for even letting me jump in on that. And, maybe as you're watching today, you've heard something that has resonated with you. Aaron shared a ton of different things. Not only would we love your feedback, we'd love for you to share this with another person today. Would you take a moment, go ahead and like this episode. Make sure you're subscribed. I hope you already are. And if you're not, subscribe and then share this with somebody because there's now over 40 episodes of opportunity, things that are not just theory, but are based on practice that you can walk away with and listen to. So we thank you today for watching Spark and Success or listening online, and we hope you have a great one. Aaron, thanks again.
Thanks, EJ.